Notorious B.I.G. said it best. Either you sling and crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot. Nobody wants to work for it anymore. There's no honor in taking that after-school job at Mickey D's. Honor's in the dollar, kid. So I went the white boy way of slinging crack rock. I became a stockbroker.
This sounds kind of corny, but it captured my heart. The fact that it was related to the type of work I had done in the FBI was what made me interested in watching it. But once I watched it, it was the redemption story that got me hooked. I'm a girl for a good redemption story. The feel, the need, the pain, the agony of wanting to be better than you are.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Film Nuts podcast. I am your host, your cinematic guide, and hopefully your friend, Taylor D. Adams. Thank you all so much for joining me today. You guys ever try really hard to make someone proud, but end up just screwing everything up? No? Just me? Okay, well, in today's episode, we're discussing a movie about someone who's just trying his best to make a living, trying to make his father proud, but he just can't seem to get it right. In Boiler Room, the pressure our main character Seth feels is augmented by the ways popular media and society tell him, as well as us, what success looks like. And sometimes that influence can be so strong that sometimes your exciting new job as a junior stockbroker turns out to be just a cog in a giant financial crime ring. But Seth is determined to make things right, and that's why my guest today loves this movie. Jerri Williams is an author, podcaster, and retired special agent with the FBI. Her podcast, FBI Retired Case File Review, dives deep into crimes, frauds, and schemes her and her colleagues have investigated over the years. So her background, mixed with her love of redemption stories, makes Jerri the perfect guest to discuss Boiler Room. Jerri and I talk about how she first got involved with the FBI, how a telemarketing scam actually works, and does Boiler Room deserve to have a shoe thrown at it? Don't worry, she explains what that means. So let's talk stock tips and daddy issues. Here's Jerri Williams talking about Boiler Room on the Film Nuts podcast.
I'm really good. This has been a fun and interesting time for me as far as being an FBI agent. A lot of things going on.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you. So, I kind of turned off my news feeds a while ago,
good, yeah.
just because things got really overwhelming. But for you as a retired FBI special agent, is that correct? Mm-hmm. What is your take, or what are your worries or concerns about what is happening right now with the current administration's involvement with the FBI?
It's concerning. I mean, the FBI has fought to be independent, for its entire existence, and now I just wonder. I'm on a kind of wait and see mode, trying to figure out what's going on, what's happening. Things are moving so fast that I just have to take the time to not panic and not think of things to worry about and just wait and see. I mean, I am so connected to the FBI, even though I retired. It's nearly 20 years ago. So I retired in 2008, but I'm still very connected. I keep up to date on what's going on. And so, yeah, I'm in a wait and see mode, but I am concerned.
What did the FBI, when you were involved, what did it mean to you? Like, how did I want to rewind even further back. How did you first become an FBI agent?
Well, I was a juvenile probation officer.
Okay.
I had majored in psychology, and the position that I had was actually called an aftercare counselor. So I was using my psychology and doing therapy with the families of the kids that I had under my caseload. All of them had been adjudicated and sent away to reform schools and group homes throughout the state of Virginia. And I traveled to them, trying to help them integrate back into the community once they were released. And so that was what I did. And then one day I saw this newsletter that said the FBI was looking to hire more women and more minorities. And I had never even thought about joining the FBI. I wasn't afraid of law enforcement in the sense that my roommate, who is still my best friend today, was a police officer after graduating from college. And so I was already connected to that. So I thought, let me give him a call and see what this is about. And luckily for me, the agent who answered the phone, Randy Waldrop, I'll always remember him. He recruited me. I was on the phone with him for at least 45 minutes. As he told me about the FBI, because this was back before the internet. So, to do research, you had to, get up and go to the library.
Yeah.
Or buy some books. So he told me about it, and it just interested me. And I thought, yeah, which was good, because about 6 months later, I was walking into the FBI Academy.
What happened during that recruitment process what sold you on being a part of the FBI?
If I'm gonna be really honest,
I would love if you were really honest.
Because I don't know if this makes me sound good or what, but it was the salary. I was doubling my salary. I was making
nothing to be ashamed about that.
$14,000 a year as a juvenile probation officer in Newport News, Virginia. This is back in 1982.
Yeah.
And when I found out that the starting salary for an FBI agent back then was $28,000, exactly, double.
Yeah.
I was like, this is going to work. Yeah. We're going to make this work.
Yeah, there is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Like, oh, double what I'm making? Yeah, I'm in. Like, because it feels, it's a job. It's a task. It's a career. Was there ever a point where, let's say, okay, the salary got you in, you're like, yeah, now I'm in. Was there ever a point after that when you were being an FBI agent that you felt like this was like the good work that you were doing?
Oh, absolutely. And I think you start to feel that when you first get in, when you're at the FBI Academy, and you start learning about the history, start learning about the cases, start learning about the different violations that the FBI works, and then you realize in many cases, the FBI is the only agency that is out there investigating these type of violations and protecting, our communities. And then you start to feel like, okay, this is more than a job. As the slogan goes for the FBI, it's a job like no other. And you really start to understand that. And even though you hear a lot of stuff about the FBI now, when an FBI agent goes into a community or interacts with a victim, they feel happy. They feel relieved that the FBI is there. Because if anything, they've seen the TV shows and they've read the books and they've watched the movies.
Yeah.
And what most people know about the FBI, they get from entertainment media. The books, the TV shows, and the movies. And so, yeah, they're relieved that we're there. And when you have that type of interaction, you feel it and you feel proud and you know that, it's a job that means something.
So speaking of media, you were with the FBI till 2008?
2008.
Right? 2008. And so you retired from the FBI and now you got a media empire going on. You've got a long running podcast. You've authored a number of books. So what was that pivot like, and why did you even pivot toward that direction?
After I had worked this career working fraud and corruption for most of the time I was in the FBI, the last 4 or 5 years, I was appointed as the spokesperson for Philadelphia. I was their media rep. I was the one going out to the public. For
the branch of FBI?
For the whole FBI, Philadelphia.
Okay, got it.
I was the spokesperson speaking to the media and the public about the FBI and what the FBI did.
Got it.
I was also a reader. I've always been a reader my entire life. I'm an Air Force brat. We traveled all over the world, Germany, England, Morocco, France, and then even in the States, Maine, Massachusetts, Spokane, Virginia. So I was always moving, never lived anywhere more than 3 years. Okay. And so books were my friends. So here I had this love of books, knowing that one day I'd like to write one, and also this career side where I was now the spokesperson and being in front of the camera and promoting the FBI. And so right when I retired, I took another role in that area. I was the director of media relations for SEPTA, which is the transit system in Philadelphia. Okay. Your buses, your trains, your trolleys, and your subways. Yeah. And so now I'm out there again, in the media, promoting the Philadelphia transit system. I'd already done it, with the FBI, promoting and preserving the public perception of the FBI. And so when I decided I wanted to start writing books, I already had that background. And so I thought, how do I use this to get people to find me and get people to be interested in reading my books? And that's when I became a podcaster. Most of my career, I worked fraud and corruption. Okay. Your embezzlements, your advance fee schemes, Ponzi schemes. What is that? Advance fee is when maybe you want a loan, you're trying to get a loan for your business, and so you go to a broker. No banks are going to give you a loan, so you go to a loan broker, and he asks for an advance fee to find you capital, to find you an investor. Okay. And they take your money and then do nothing. Don't do anything. Okay, got it. Okay. And that happens a lot. And they're complicated cases because you have to prove that they did nothing or they never had the means to do anything. Because otherwise it's just a bad business deal. So I love those cases. I worked a lot of those cases. But I also did, and this will go into the movie that we're talking about, business-to-business telemarketing fraud. And that was pretty exciting too.
Why was it exciting?
Because the fraud, the scam, the deception is right out there. And of course, you're going to capture that. It's a telephone call. So you're going to do a lot of consensual monitoring, electronic monitoring, where you're capturing those recorded statements. And, it's always fun to be able to go after a bad guy and use their own words against them.
You got him on tape and you're like, no, this is it. This is what we have.
You didn't do that? Oh, you didn't say that?
Are you sure?
Yeah. Let me play this back to you.
That's got to feel very satisfying when you've got proof of somebody. You've got the receipts. Yeah. You've got proof of somebody just lying through their teeth.
There is nothing better. And, and during the time that I was working those cases, social media and texting was not as prevalent, and even emails, if you can think about it. A lot of those cases I worked in the 90s. So now it's even better. I mean, it's like the gift that keeps on giving. When you're trying to prove something, you just go back to social media, see what they said. Yeah. Go back to email, go back to their text. See what they said. What they were telling people. It's a pretty good deal. Yeah.
So with that background and going toward this telemarketing fraud, tell me why you wanted to talk about Boiler Room.
Boiler Room has always been a movie that, it sounds kind of corny, but it captured my heart.
There's nothing corny about that at all. That's awesome.
The movie, of course, is about, fraud and corruption, where you have, a group of young men trying to get rich quick by conning people out of their money.
Harry, listen to this. Jesus Christ, what's going on over there?
Do you see what I'm saying? People know the whole place is going nuts. It's already out the point. It just came off the restricted list.
Look, I'm advising all my clients to get in on this and heavy. Don't you see you get the same stock that we picked up at 8, only now it's at 4. Now, when it was at 8, I told you it was going to 20, right?
Yes, you did.
Well, it's still going there, probably even higher now. Look, this doesn't change anything except that you're going to be making more money than you did before. Harry, I liked it at 8, I love it at 4. It's an average down for you.
But right behind that is a family drama that is so heartbreaking that I just loved it. I watched it again last night in preparation for coming here, and it got me again. You know,
Do you remember the first time you saw this?
I don't recall the very first time, but it would have been sometime in, like 2003 or 4, because the movie came out in 2000. And I wasn't going out to the movies very often, so I had to wait till it got to Blockbusters. So we're going back.
Yes.
To Blockbuster time.
I miss Blockbuster
Yeah,
so much.
so do I. It was just kind of fun going through and looking at the,
Yeah.
the covers of the different videos and making your choices. But so it would have been probably 3 or 4 years after it had come out. But it was also after I had worked this business-to-business telemarketing. And so many of the things that were in the movie, I had experienced myself in investigating this case, which I worked on for 3 years.
Oh, wow. So I can't remember within the movie how long of a time things take, but and also the FBI is like there's not a lot of FBI presence in this movie. They're there because they serve an important purpose. But is 3 years like kind of a normal amount of time to try and gather enough evidence for a case like this?
Well, my case was much larger.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're in the movie, in Boiler Room, they're investigating one, boiler room or,
Firm.
Yeah, one firm.
Okay.
And mine, I went after 14 at the same time.
Whoa.
So that's why it took
takes
so
a long
long.
time. Yeah.
Right. And because I had this undercover phone bank that, should I explain the case?
Please, I would love to hear it.
So it was business-to-business telemarketing fraud. So somewhat like when telemarketers call individuals, there are people who are sitting in a boiler room or a call center, and they have these leads of businesses throughout the country. And instead of selling stock or investments like they are in Boiler Room, they were selling industrial products.
Okay.
And so their whole thing was to get to the procurement officer or the maintenance person in this particular business, whether it be a school or just a large corporation. They were trying to get to the person that was in charge of ordering industrial products.
Okay.
Light bulbs, cleaning solutions, duct tape, things like that. And matter of fact, the case was called Operation Duct Tape. Because in the FBI, when you have a large case, you get a code name. So it was Operation Duct Tape. And the whole purpose of the person that was calling was to get to the procurement officer and bribe them. Bribe them to then approve invoices for products that were obviously overpriced. Usually the minimum 10 times what it would cost you to purchase that in a legitimate place.
Okay.
And so the whole purpose was to bribe them, to get them to approve the invoice, and at a point where maybe they were getting too much being shipped to them, just improve the invoice and not even ship the merchandise. And they were being bribed with gift certificates from big stores like Sears. Sears, I don't even think Sears is still operating.
I can't say yes or no.
But Sears and your kind of like Home Depots and things like that, they were sending them gift certificates so they could get things like big screen TVs, refrigerators, riding lawnmowers, washer and dryers.
Wow.
So this was being sent to the procurement officer at their home.
Okay.
And I believe they might have used this term in Boiler Room, but they were looking for a taker. Okay. So when you made that initial call, you knew that your procurement officer that you were talking to as the salesperson was a taker if he allowed you to get his home address so that he could mail these gift certificates to their home. Then you knew somebody was a taker. They were willing to take a bribe in order to improve these invoices. And it was millions and millions of dollars. And for some reason, my understanding was that Philadelphia was like the center for this type of scam.
Okay.
There were lots and
And
lots.
that's where you were working?
And that's where I was working, in Philadelphia. And so once I heard about it, once I learned about it, we decided to do this operation, this Group 2 undercover operation, where we luckily went after one person first, which is like in Boiler Room. There were so many similarities. But we went after one person first, or one organization, one telemarketing firm first. And then we used those two individuals, the owners, to become cooperating witnesses. And then I was able to get them to pass out leads to all these other organizations that they were connected to. They thought they were calling people all over the country, and they were really calling me. And so everybody who manned the phone banks, these fictitious companies, fictitious organizations, when we picked up the phone, we became, procurement officer. I did the voice of an older, very grandmother-like procurement officer who was very, very greedy and was more than happy to accept the gift certificates, to ignore invoices and approve invoices.
Wow.
So
you were an actor.
yeah, which is really fun and not as dangerous.
Especially over the phone.
Because I was doing it over the phone.
Yeah, that's voice acting. That's great.
So it was a lot of fun. And so the reason it went on for 3 years is because we were getting all of these companies. And so I couldn't take down, once I had the information or the evidence for one company, I couldn't take it down because I was still working on other companies.
Okay.
And actually, they were stealing leads from each other. So maybe initially, I believe it was like maybe 8 or 10 companies that we targeted.
Yeah.
But I ended up with 14 because other companies somehow got those leads. Maybe salesmen moved to a different organization and they started calling our fictitious phones.
Gosh. Wow.
It was really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that does sound really interesting. And I think, so was it the fact that this movie was so similar to a case that you had recently worked, as well as this emotional component? Was that kind of like, that's what made you keep this movie in mind the more time went on?
The fact that it was related to the type of work I had done in the FBI was what made me interested in watching it. Mm-hmm. But once I watched it, it was the redemption story that got me hooked. I'm a girl for a good redemption story. That's what I write. The books that I've written are redemption stories. That's what I like to read. Police procedurals or crime stories where somebody, it may be the target, the bad guy. It may be the agent, has a story of redemption. And I love that. And this movie goes way out when it comes to that, the feel, the need, the pain, the agony of wanting to be better than you are. And that's what our main character, whose name I can't, Seth
Davis,
who is played by Giovanni Ribisi. He's such a great actor.
Yes.
Yeah, he's such a great actor. And I believe the story. And I just love the movie.
Well, you talked a little bit about how the case is similar to something you worked on. You've authored many books, including this one you just gifted me, which I really appreciate, about kind of the FBI myths and misconceptions inside, the TV and the TV shows and movies we watch. So kind of on this, let's say, would you throw your shoe at this movie? Or is this, no, this is like, this protocol wise, this is a good FBI
Yes,
procedure.
that is my rating system. Because the reality is that when it's not just police officers and FBI agents when we watch a crime story, it's the same thing with doctors when they watch a medical story, or lawyers when they watch a legal drama.
Yeah.
There are some times when you're watching this and you think this person has done absolutely no research. And you want to take the book, if you're reading a book, and throw it across the room, or if you're watching a TV show or movie, you want to take your shoe off and throw it at the TV, because it is just so unauthentic. Is that a word?
Yeah,
I think
sure.
it is. Yeah,
Inauthentic?
It's inauthentic.
Not authentic.
Yeah, it's not. It's not authentic. And you just think, couldn't you just done a little research? And so in writing this book, FBI Myths and Misconceptions, a manual for armchair detectives, I have done the work for everyone.
You mentioned that you like the redemption story. Can you go any more specifics about what about that redemption story is so good for you to watch?
Well, I think probably because knowing story structure, and that you should try to strive for an arc, an arc, where your main characters, again, whether they're bad guys or good guys, start at one point and go through a journey to another. And the redemption plot line serves that very well, and I like to see that journey. I don't want just, I'm not that much into thrillers where there's action, something happening every time, because I really like that personal story. And so something where they do show you that home life. Police procedurals are great because if you do them right, you have that crime that the character is solving, but you're also learning about them and how it affects. Matter of fact, Joseph Wambaugh, rest in peace, who recently passed away, had this saying that I always loved, and it is that a good crime story is not how a cop works on a case, but how a case works on a cop.
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
And so that really is what redemption stories are about, is whatever the person is doing and going through, how that helps them change. Whether it's redemption stories, you're supposed to change for the good. But I like to see that journey, that change.
What about when we talked off mic, you talked about how you really loved the relationship between Seth and his dad, the judge. What about that was so interesting to you?
It was dramatic, and it was so real. And there's not a lot of shows where they go into such emotional depth when they talk about some of those uncomfortable relationships between fathers and son. You might have one where the kid is trying to get the father's attention and the father's too busy with work. But this one, it's almost as if the judge, who is the father, really resents his son's lack of ambition.
I dropped out.
Want to tell us why?
Well, I gave it a year, Dad, and it's just not for me.
I see. So that means you've been lying to us for 6 months. 6 months, Seth. School's fine, Dad. My grades are good, Dad. All right, let's just leave that for a second. So you dropped out. That means you haven't been getting your student loan checks, right? Is that right? How you making rent every month, Seth?
Well, I'm running a business, and I'm just earning a living.
Earning a living? Is this what you call earning a living? Is that earning a living, huh?
I mean, at one point in the movie, there's a scene where he actually calls him an unbelievable piece of shit. And it was like, whoa, this is a father talking about their son. And there are other lines, and it was just so heartbreaking, but real. I mean, I don't know anybody that personally from my family, but I've heard of stories and heard of people talk about having these really sad and relationships with parents, and this one showed it in a way that was so raw and so out there that it as a mother of three kids and a grandmother, it just really affected me, and always will. Every time I watch it, the relationship between the father and the son, the judge and Seth, will always tear at my heart.
Yeah, the relationship was super interesting to me, especially when we see, like, the start of the movie. We see, we have this like flash forward of like there's a big party happening, all these stockbroker dudes on a bus about to have a party, but then we see Seth kind of flashback, and he's running his own business. Granted, it's a casino out of his house,
right? It's illegal.
Yeah. But I think that's what's so interesting is that he's making money doing something illegal, and his father is disappointed in him. Disappointed is probably the milder word for what he is feeling.
He's disgusted.
Yes, very much so. And so because he loves his dad, and he wants to make him proud, he decides to clean up his act in one way or another, and finds this in for being a stockbroker, basically. And when that turns out to be also illegal, the fact that they were both illegal, I think, is really interesting with this, because all Seth was trying to do was survive and make money, which I think is super interesting when his father talks about his lack of ambition.
Right.
He's like, no, he actually has it. It's just not in a way that you approve of. And then when he tries to go, for lack of a better term, straight, he unknowingly is then doing something illegal.
And I think his motivation to me is really more than just trying to make money. He's trying to make money to make his father proud. That is his primary goal, and whatever he does is to make his father proud. And the first one, I don't know why he didn't realize his father was not going to be happy about him running an illegal casino, in his home. But the second one, again, the word heartbreaking, that he thinks, I finally made it. I'm going to take my Series 7 and I'm going to become a stockbroker. And his father was proud. His father was really excited when he heard that he was going to, to do that. And he was very, very proud. And so when Seth slowly realizes that it's illegal too, this is a fraud, he's actually gutted. I mean, he's not sure what to do. He wants to get out. He begs his father to help him get out because it's happened and he's so embarrassed.
And the casino was a fucking business, and I ran it pretty fucking well, Dad. And to think that I closed it for you.
Wait. When'd you close it?
And then I went after this job because I thought it was what you wanted me to be doing.
Seth, wait a second. When did you close it?
And I tried to make the changes that you wanted me to, and I'm leaving JT now. I'm just asking you for this one thing, Dad. Just this one thing, please. Just to help your son.
Was there ever a point when you were first starting out in your career? What was there ever a goal to make your folks proud?
Oh, as soon as I became, I think they were proud when I went to college because they didn't go to college.
Okay.
And so, I think in most cases, every child wants to make their parents proud. They want to show their parents that the values and, the love that you've given to me, I'm returning that by being an upstanding, citizen in the community.
Yeah.
So we all want to make our parents proud. And when I became an FBI agent, I think they were extremely proud. They were there with me when I was sworn in. I have a picture that I keep.
Oh, that's so
cool. And neither of them are still alive, but yet they were very, very, very proud.
So I kind of want to dive in a little bit more about kind of with Giovanni Ribisi's character. it's like there's kind of a fully realized redemption because the movie ends kind of abruptly.
Yes, it does.
And so we don't really get to see like the aftermath of his choices, but we do get to see the thing that sparks him to kind of change his ways and also go to his father and try to get him to help him. And then the father gets caught on on tape.
I want you to testify.
What are you offering?
Full immunity.
And what happens with my father? I mean,
You won't do any time.
Sir, I haven't done anything illegal.
so then what's the deal then?
The deal is I lose my judgeship just going along for the ride.
I have nothing to do with that.
Excuse me, what is that supposed to mean? You're gonna release the tape to the press? Makes your case much more glamorous with the involvement of a federal judge?
It's so interesting to me that this movie decides not to show us how the case is resolved. How would this case resolve, do you think?
Well, that was the one thing about the movie when we get into how I like to review movies for teachable moments. Seth's relationship and the FBI kind of was off because Nia Long, wonderful actress, but I don't understand why they went to her when they could have gone directly to Seth, and gathered a lot of that information. But I think his redemption does take place in the movie when he starts to see these clues that it's illegal and he continues to search them out. I think we would not have called that redemption if he saw something and he ignored it.
Yeah, that's true.
But the fact that he kept looking and kept finding and kept, searching for what was illegal and how he could get out of this. Of course, he was trying to get out of it in a way where he would still make some money. But the redemption, I think, is solidified when he goes out of his way to get the money back from the one victim whose life he's destroyed by taking their life savings.
His name is Harry Renard.
I don't know him.
Well, I think you should because we're about to lose him, and he dropped $50,000 on Ferrotech this week alone.
And you want to do what?
Well, I want to keep him here. I think that we should give him a chunk of the MedPad and IPO.
We don't just hand out IPO to somebody who had a bad day in the market.
Look, Michael, this guy is a fucking whale, and he's gonna do an obscene amount of business with this firm.
And you're somehow just sure of this.
Yeah, the guy completely trusts me. He doesn't even need the money. He owns the biggest foods company in Wisconsin.
So I do think the redemption is shown in the movie.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I think what I think of is like I wanted to see all the guys go. I wanted to see the whole firm just get burned to the ground.
Well, you saw that in a sense when the caravan of cars pulled into the parking lot, and you know what was going to happen next.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, that would have made the whole movie, to continue on to all of that next phase. That would have made it a real FBI movie for me. This one is really features, or has an FBI element to it, but it is not an FBI movie.
Yeah. Cop shows and movies have just been around forever. Like it's a big thing. It's rife material for procedural shows to show just really good stories. We like, as audiences, we like seeing people who are good at their jobs, regardless of what that job is. But there's also like a lot of, I don't, the popular term with like shows like Law and Order and stuff like this, with like a lot of stuff that Dick Wolf creates, it's kind of this like this like propaganda model where like we're portraying our heroes as police officers. We want to celebrate the renegade who believes he's above the law because he gets results. Is there anything that you've seen show or movie wise where you see something along those lines that you personally feel is detrimental to almost like a law enforcement reputation?
Chicago.
Okay. Chicago PD?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there is a corruption and an undercurrent of doing whatever means is necessary to get the bad guy. I've only watched that show once or twice, and it turned me off right away. To think that people are watching this and thinking that this underhanded way of going about justice, is acceptable. And so there are TV shows that show that in a more of a conspiracy where everybody's involved in this activity. That turns me off. Of course, everybody's going to have, in every situation, there are going to be people that are going to go off the path that they're supposed to be on.
Yeah.
And so showing that as an individual, and then, of course, following through and showing that person get, the consequences of that. I love those stories. But one where you have somebody who's supposed to be the good guy, but is all doing all of this underhanded and bad stuff behind the scenes, that turns me off.
Yeah. I feel like there's almost this modern sense of watching someone who has a certain profession whose job is to fight crime or do good or whatever it is. There's almost like an escapist mentality where we want to see the ideal version of how those things happen. Like we don't want to see, as much as we might have a little bit of rebellious spirit against, some of us have a rebellious spirit against authority and all this other stuff. I feel like at the very base level, we all want to see, like you said, quote unquote, justice come full. Is there anything, I mean, you mentioned Chicago PD. Is there anything that we're kind of, as viewers, when we watch shows like this, is there anything we should be aware of about what might constitute a quote good or bad representation of law enforcement?
Reality. You don't, of course, as creators, as novelists or screenwriters, you want to use your imagination to create your story. But you can also look at what is happening for real, to get that story foundation. And so hopefully, when you have a bad cop, the reason that that person's a bad cop is because of the consequences that person has faced. If
we want that.
Yeah,
that's for sure. It doesn't always happen, but we want that.
Yeah, and we want that. And so and I think it's also very American to want stories to end happily. I mean, I've watched foreign films and they end with the person that you've been cheering for, the whole film having something terrible happen, and you're like, what?
That's not what I wanted.
No, that's not what I wanted at all. And so, but we like that. We like a happy ending here.
Yeah.
And so the happy ending for me in a show that shows law enforcement acting badly is to make sure those law enforcement officers receive consequences.
They're held accountable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I agree with you there. Like it doesn't matter what color uniform you're wearing or if you're wearing a uniform at all. Like if you do something bad, we all want those people to be held accountable regardless of who they are.
And I think that happens in going back to the movie.
Yeah.
In Boiler Room.
Yeah.
You see that.
Yeah.
You see that the people that did wrong are going to be held accountable.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite moment or scene from this film?
It's that heartbreaking scene where Seth goes to the judge and admits that it's wrong, and he is crying, he's sobbing, he's begging his father to help him. I mean, he's a young man, but he is a man, and for him to now revert to the most and childish not in a negative way, but this is a boy crying and asking and begging for his father's love. That scene, I mean, it's just so well acted, And I think for me, a lot of times when I'm watching a show, there are things in it that take me out of the story. And this is one that put me so deep in that story that it's become one of my favorites.
You bring up a good point about just the child aspect. I think everyone other than the judge in this movie and the FBI agents, or everyone involved with the JT Marlin, is a child. That is how I am seeing. You know, when Seth goes over to, you know, one of the head guys' house and they're all like watching Wall Street, or they talk about Glengarry Glen Ross. You know, they're eating pizza, and there's like nothing set up in the entire house but a couch and a TV.
Seth, what's up, man?
Wait outside.
Hey, man. Thought you weren't gonna make it, man. Sit down, grab a slice, have a beer. What's up?
You think he fucked Hannah, or you think Sheen fucked her?
Both of them. He just moved in? What do you mean? He's been there 8 months.
When I was apartment hopping while I was in college and recently after college, I didn't unpack either. But yeah, I was like in my early 20s. Like you're not developed yet. Like you're still figuring stuff out, which I think is so important to kind of showcase those kind of individuals in this movie and how young they are when they're putting on a performance of how they think an adult should act.
So there is a line in the movie where Seth is told that he needed to act as if you're rich, act as if you're the best investment stockbroker there is. To put on that air. It's almost like the fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the things that you see throughout the movie when you talk about these guys that, you know, are trying to live large, but they're really boys, you know, young boys acting as if they're men.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I was getting the whole time. I was like, these are kids. These are children trying to, they're when they're on the phone pretending that these things, like that's part of sales. Can't remember if they say this in this movie, but it's just the first job I ever, full-time job I ever had, I was a car salesman. And the sales technique was to get somebody to say yes 3 times to anything. And then you got them on the hook. And I'm like, it brought me back to that way of thinking where you can say, the goal is for you to say whatever you need to in order to get your mark or whoever to say yes 3 times. And the fact that these are such young people just doing what they've been what they feel like success is. And it's not even just because their boss is telling them that. It's because like what's important? Money's important. And what's out right now, like or what's out within the past decade, like these movies that portray success, these movies that kind of we can take the wrong message from. Like I know plenty of people watch Wolf of Wall Street and take the wrong message from that movie. And it's just super fascinating to me that we've got a movie about that, and then your central character realizes how wrong everything is and breaks away.
And that may be what I love about this movie, because you're right. In Wolf of Wall Street, I mean, they celebrate this gluttonous need for money and stuff. And you see that in Boiler Room, but then you get to see the other side of it, you know. That is probably, and you know what, you just reminded me, my very first job was telemarketing. I sold...
Really?
And get this, I sold Sears maintenance agreements to people who had just purchased, you know, wash machines and dryers.
Are you sure you weren't part of a con?
I worked for Sears, but I'm sure we used some of those. And it's not like I forgot about that, but, you know, connecting that first job to this movie and my career kind of came full circle.
Yeah.
It's also the only time I was ever fired, too.
Oh.
So it was my first job.
Okay.
I worked in high school. You know, I had to go and go to this little office and get on the phone with the lead card to people who had just recently purchased. This is amazing that I'm thinking about this. Had purchased, you know, these appliances and call to see if they would get the 2 or 3 year extended warranty service. And a lot of times people, the machine wasn't working right. It had already had to be serviced, and, so they were irate, oh, while you're on the phone, let me tell you, the knob came off, and so they're yelling at you. And so one time a customer was yelling at me and had slammed the phone down and hung up. And after they hung up, I said something and slammed the phone down and hung up. But I wasn't talking to the client, but my boss thought I was.
Oh.
I got fired.
Wow.
But you know what?
Yeah.
I hated that job.
I mean, yeah.
I
imagine when you took that, you weren't like, oh, this is the career I'm going to have.
Yeah. Telemarketing is a hard job. And so, just having to take that breath and pick up the phone and dial it again.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're going to have to make hundreds of calls to get that one yes.
Yeah.
Is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So not that I feel sorry for telemarketers. I'm when I get a call, luckily on the cell phone, they tell you right now, probably spam, and so you can ignore it.
Potentially spam. I get that a lot. Yeah.
But yeah, that's really strange. I forgot about that.
It's funny how that's funny how it works out.
Maybe that's why I like this movie.
Maybe
so
I mean
much.
I like to think that for me at least, like professionally, when I go from one long-term gig to another, whether it's like it's devoting all of my time and I'm getting paid, or it's just a passion project that I'm really into, I find that whatever I work on next has built upon what I've previously worked on. And it just kind of goes and goes and goes and goes. And so that's how that's kind of what happened with you, at least, from this kind of like, from telemarketer to FBI agent who worked on a telemarketing scam, who then loves this movie. I think it makes total sense.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. How much do I owe you for this therapy session for me to find my innermost motivation?
You can donate at patreon.com/filmnuts. This was so much fun. I'm so glad you came on the show, and I can't thank you enough. And I'm really looking forward to reading your book, FBI Myths and Misconceptions, A Manual for Armchair Detectives.
Thank you.
Oh, man, I can't wait to solve a crime after this. Thanks, Jerri.
You're welcome.
The reason I love doing this show is that everyone has different reasons for enjoying what they love. And sometimes on this show, my guest is able to discover even more of those reasons. And I'm not gonna lie, it feels pretty good if I'm the one helping someone else deepen their love for their favorite movie or favorite TV show. I think it's incredibly cool how our upbringing, our job, our goals, and much more influence what we love to watch. So what do y'all think of Boiler Room? Do you love it as much as Jerri? Do you not? I want to hear what you think, so drop some stuff in the comments. A huge thanks to Jerri for chatting with me today, and a $50,000 stock option to you for joining us in our little discussion. Before you go, please check out Jerri's podcast, FBI Retired Case File Review, and the many books she's written. You'll find a link to all that stuff in the show notes. And I produce all of these episodes out of my own pocket, so if you want to help support the show, please consider backing us on Patreon. For more info on that, check out the show notes or visit patreon.com/filmnuts. Our theme this season is brought to us by JMac. Our artwork is designed by Madongwa Sibuhudi. Our head of production is Keaton Lusk, and all episodes of the Film Nuts podcast are produced and edited by me, Taylor D. Adams. If you want to get in touch, you can email filmnutspodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram and TikTok @filmnutspodcast. And don't forget to join the Nut House Discord community absolutely free by checking out the link in the show notes. There's all kinds of cool people in there who love movies and TV and all kinds of entertainment, so jump on in. Thank you all again so much for joining me today, and until next time, I hope your parents approve of all your decisions. Or not. I don't know your life. Just do what makes you happy and don't hurt anyone, okay? I'm gonna read Jerri's book now. Yeah, I'm excited. Anyway, hope you'll join us next time.